How are we going to deal with that? We have so many flights to cover.
I think we'll just have to break it up over several episodes.
Yeah, exactly. We'll do that. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Your attention, please. Paul and Alex are required to proceed to the gate immediately.
What?
No way.
What is happening here?
This is the last call for the Layovers podcast.
Really?
Come on, man. This is our thing. We got this.
Oh, yeah.
And we made it.
Of course, geeks.
Flight 98 to Detroit.
Hey, who's this stranger at the end of the line?
Oh, man, 2
Been a
months.
while. Has it been 2 months?
2 months.
Sorry.
You know, it's one of these things where we didn't know we needed a break, but we actually needed one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
right?
think it'll be a regular thing, but a summer hiatus is probably not a bad idea for us and for the listeners as well.
Well, some of them, because trust me, we got harassed with some of you guys. I say that in a very loving way, trying to force us to get a new episode. So there it is. We're recording today, 9/11. My God, that was not even actually, I didn't think about that. The 11th of September 2019. It's been exactly 2 months and 2 days we haven't recorded. Well, you know what? Things don't change that much. The MAX is still not flying. The 380 is still flying. The UK is still attempting to Brexit. I mean, maybe the only thing that has changed is that Popeye has released a chicken sandwich, and that's pretty much it.
I spent an inordinate amount of time planning my Popeye strategy when I was in California. Because it's rare that something as universally acclaimed as that sandwich appears to be graces us with its presence.
Were you able to try it?
I was not.
Oh my God.
I was not. Yeah, I was more fascinated by the fact that, like I said, it was so universally adored. I was impressed by this. I want to know more about it. I don't know when I'm going back to America, but I will endeavor to. If you've tried it, I know there's a lot of people that listen to us that are big food fans. If you've tried it, is it really that good?
There's a guy, I think, that is suing Popeye because he went through like a dozen of different shops and couldn't find a sandwich and accuses Popeye of false advertising and misleading or something.
If you get that uptight about a chicken sandwich, I think you need to seriously re-examine your priorities.
So there's going to be a lot about the US in this episode. You'll see why. We're not going to do the news from 2 months ago, but we're going to start with the travels where we left off, which was Alex was about to migrate to the US as he does every summer, and I was about to go to Asia myself. Also, please bear with me with this episode. I got a cold. I just get back from Vietnam, and I think the change of temperatures got me a cold, and I might be coughing throughout the episode. I'll try not to have cough syrup in front of me and other mixtures to try not to. We miss you all. Thank you so much. We received actually a ton of feedback, and obviously that's unfair, but a lot of it will get lost in time because stuff that appeared in our radar maybe like a month and a half ago might not be relevant anymore. And I know you did the effort to write us, but as usual, we promise to try to mention you all. And what I'm going to do right now, actually, brace yourselves. I'm going to actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think 7 reviews we gotten on Apple Podcast because you took the time and we really do appreciate that. They're all 5 stars. Thank you so much. I hope that, I was almost thinking, Alex, that maybe because we're not releasing, at some point, somebody will give us like a 3-star, 2-star, 1-star, like, that Uber driver that never shows up, right? So, so the first one is from Rudy in MSP in the US, obviously. That was in July. Great show. Always enjoy your shows and looking forward to the next one. And he's actually asking a question I love that. I'm looking at booking a trip to Rome on AA with miles and seem to be able to get a much better rate if I add a stop in either Madrid on Iberia or Heathrow on BA. Would you recommend this? And if so, which city and which airline? So if you had to choose Madrid, the huge Madrid with Iberia, or Heathrow with BA for a layover, which one would you choose, Alex?
If I'm not leaving the city, then I would say Heathrow.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think we've talked about this a lot, but the T5 transit experience is actually very solid, all things considered. It's when you have to move between terminals that it gets a little... And even then, it's not as seamless as a lot of other big airports, but it's not that bad. Madrid, you will enter the vortex and you will never reappear. And that will be the end of you. As a city, it's wonderful, but if you're not leaving the airport, then I cannot, in good faith, advise it.
JP in ROC from the US, so easy to listen to. Could listen to these guys for hours. Well, thank you so much. Each episode is like going on a trip to a new place in the world.
Oh, wow.
Well, yeah, well, we're trying. Exactly. And let's hear more from Australian airports when you guys can. Yeah, we know. And he's a US listener. So we know. We still, I think, number 3 in our rankings in terms of listenership, you guys in Australia. I might be back in the fall. It's not certain yet. If I do, you'll have another airport for you guys. But it's really far from our.
It is. I was just going to say that it's not like we can pop over as much as we'd like to. Manoj_B from the UK. Fantastic podcast. I have only recently discovered this amazingly informative podcast. Alex and Paul are great presenting double act. Wow. I am hooked. Thank you so much. Wellness Surgeon in the US. Loving this. This is an awesome podcast. Didn't know anything like this existed. It's great to hear of you guys travel. It inspires me to keep wanting to fly. Happy flying to you both. Well, thank you so much, Wellness Surgeon. Wellness Surgeon, that's a great name. I mean, and you need to drill me into discipline sometimes with food, probably. The Saint Sitter 1985 in Germany. Best aviation podcast I know. That is very, very nice to say. Kind.
Thank you. From Pittsburgh, Brian, the US, evidently. Fantastic podcast that covers everything commercial aviation and more. Well structured. Oh, that's really nice to say, because sometimes I don't feel that we are that much structured. We just go along with our notes.
Well, you work hard putting the show notes together, and obviously it pays off.
Thank you. If you are into commercial aviation and want to learn more, this podcast is for you. And now, the last one, because there's a little backstory about that one. So maybe before I read it, did you not meet one of our listeners, Alex, in Mexico?
I did. It was a wonderful moment. I was due to meet a client, and the Four Seasons in Mexico City has got this wonderful kind of almost Singaporean Raffles style atrium area. And I was being shown to my table, and this guy comes up to me and he says, Alex, and I greeted him by my client's name because I'd never met this guy before, assuming that it was my client. And he looked at me like, what? No. And he's like, I thought it was you. I'm a layovers listener and I watch Attaché, and this is so great. I said to my wife, I think that's Alex Hunter. And that just made my day. I love meeting listeners of this podcast in real life. So if you ever see me wandering through an airport, I have resting bitch face, so I'm not in a bad mood. That's just the way my face is. So please come and say hi. I'm not in a bad mood, I promise you. It made the trip for me. It was so great. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and say hi.
Yeah, it was awesome. He's called Fuad Roger. He actually had written us a few stuff in the past. On Twitter is World Tyson, at World Tyson. What a treat to meet Alex at the Four Seasons Mexico City. What a great show. Thank you for your great work. And just right after that, he added actually a review on Apple Podcast. The title, I think, is Meeting Alex in Mexico City Four Season Hotel.
I love that. I love that moments like that happens.
Yeah, he says exactly the same. I was having breakfast and saw Alex at the entrance of the restaurant. What a treat. Again, your show is great. Keep it up, and maybe we'll meet again someday somewhere in the world. Father Roger, thank you so much. It's really so cool.
Yeah.
I myself met, it was not as funny circumstances because it was almost for sure that I would meet some of our listeners. I went to a meetup by the guys behind App in the Air. It's one app that does travel planning, flight planning. It was really cool. They had their first meetup in London last week. I met actually several of our listeners. To be frank, I forgot most of their names because we didn't exchange cards. So guys just reach out and say, Paul, what did you forget about me? The one I will mention, because he's been a very active listener interacting with us, is Dan Foster, DJ Faust, I think both on Instagram and Twitter. It was really, really cool to meet him. We chatted a lot about tons of stuff. So Dan, was so cool to meet you. I hope to meet you again. He actually, I didn't know that. He lived in Japan recently for 3 months, like out in somewhere in the middle of anywhere in Japan. It was really amazing. Wow. I didn't speak in Japanese because my Japanese sucks. I'm sure, Dan, your Japanese is actually much better. The event was great. I'll talk about the event in another episode. I still want to do a shout out to Behram, the CEO, Sergey, the CTO, Greg, the CRO, Nikita, the CMO, Derek, the CEO, and everybody else else. It was a great event. It was at the Emirates Experience Center here in London, trying to fly 380s. They didn't allow me to crash one.
That's probably for the best.
Yes, exactly. So there's tons to talk about. You just heard Alex went to Mexico. Actually, you went several times to Mexico. That will be for forthcoming episodes. There's a lot of news. Of course, we're not going to go into everything. We're not going to maybe also go into the fact that BA just had its largest strike ever, right?
Yeah, that was a cluster on so many levels.
Oh my God. I mean, they started flying again this morning, but there was literally not a single BA flight flying for 2 days.
It was weird. You looked last night and there was 2 BA flights going and they were both wet leased. One was Air Belgium and the other was Envelop or whatever they're called.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think City Flyer
was, yeah, they were.
It was flying, but that's pretty much it. I mean, it's insane, man. I mean, you didn't get got into it.
We did. Yeah. In a strange way. Well, because they had that IT meltdown as well, which meant a bunch of people were emailed, including me, saying that my flight was canceled. And actually, my flight was on the day before the strikes were due to take place. And they sent me an email saying, hey, it's been canceled. And then I was like, you know what? I don't trust you. And I didn't do anything. And then, of course, 24 hours later, the email saying, wait, never mind. It's not canceled. So, yeah, we were indirectly affected. And then our flight back from California got messed up and was canceled as well. So, yeah, we were affected by it.
And you also got, that's for the next episode, so that I give a little bit of suspense for the next episode. You were also hit by the hurricane, I think?
Yes.
Ish, in a tangent way, right? Of course, yeah. No. You see, he's alive in front of me, but yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Boeing before going to our flight. So, of course, we see the 737 is still not flying. It's parked everywhere, to the point I think that it's not Trump who should buy Greenland. It's actually Boeing who should buy Greenland to park their 737s. I don't know why they're going to park them anymore.
Yeah, it's getting crazy. We went to the Museum of Flight in Seattle over the summer, which is at Boeing Field, and there were a lot of 737 Maxes parked along the side.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, and they're not even, I don't even think they're made there. But yeah, it's getting, I don't think any of us would have imagined that we'd be mid-September and not have any kind of resolution to this problem, or even a sense of when it might be fixed or the planes might be in the air. I know a lot of airlines are removing them from their schedules for the rest of the year.
Not before January 2020, exactly. And I mean, we've had that repeatedly in the past few months, so that doesn't even mean that it's going to be back in 2020, at least early 2020. The FAA seems to be really stringent about how they are looking at the 737, the MAX. They basically forced Boeing to look into an entirely new software architecture. It's not just a patch. It's not just a revamp of MCAS and a few other bits of software. It's a huge undertaking. They really are saying that the entire architecture has to be revamped. And that's a huge undertaking. I mean, you cannot just create a software out of the blue in 5 months. I mean, I think The Economist was headlining about that like last week or 2 weeks ago, that Boeing's troubles are costing the aerospace industry $4 billion a quarter, which is insane. And I read some numbers. I don't know if it was in the same article or somewhere else. American is canceling 150 flights a day. United is canceling 70 flights a day, up to 95 actually next month. And Southwest, which obviously has a lot of these, is canceling around 150 flights a day. That's a lot of flights. I didn't realize the amount of them.
Yeah, that is a lot of flights. And I think that the longer this goes on, the more financial pressure it's going to put on Boeing. I don't know what they're going to do. I think the European, I can't remember the name of the European equivalent of the FAA have said that they will not take the FAA's certification as writ. They're going to do their own testing of the final solution to this problem before they recertify it for European airspace as well. So that's just going to compound this delay even more. And I read today that a former Boeing exec, I think he was the chief technical pilot, is pleading the fifth after he was subpoenaed for documents by the Justice Department.
Oh, wow.
That can't be good.
Yeah, we haven't seen the end of it. We know that it's already hit, the stock, and of course, but some of the customers are getting pissed. Some of the customers are actually saying, what will happen once the airplane is able to fly? will you deliver to us? And will we have to go to these random places to actually take, because the contracts usually is delivered at the factory. It's not parked in some random place. But even more, I think there's Avia. I think that's a Russian, if I'm not mistaken, airline company that is suing Boeing, claiming that they breached the contract by misrepresenting how safe the plane was to fly and put profits ahead of safety. They had, I think, ordered 35 of these planes. Flydeal, which is a Saudi budget airline, has decided to cancel its order altogether. That's an order for $6 billion of MAX aircraft, and they're going to go full 320. We're even hearing, I don't know if that's true, because maybe it's just pressure, but Southwest is investigating going off a single aircraft and looking at alternatives. It could be just, pressure on Boeing, because I don't see them doing that tomorrow, but you never know. Yeah. Air Canada, they've hired wet leases from Qatar Airways, and United has found some old 737-700s, and they're going to add them to their fleet, I think, next month. But the best one is that even the 737-200 is being brought back. It's a 1967 plane, guys. I think it was retired. The last company which retired might have been Southwest, probably, 15 years ago?
In the U.S., certainly, yeah.
It can hold 100, 110 passengers. If you think about the MAX, it's about 150 to maybe 220, 230. You can fly maybe a third of what the MAX can do, but still, you have companies that are looking into, and I think one company, I don't remember which one, has actually started flying it, 737-200. I mean, as an AV geek, it's fun. I would like to fly it.
Yeah, it's a great airplane.
But as a signal to the industry, it's not that great.
No, it's not. And, American just retired their last Mad Dog as well. And I bet you they're slightly sort of gritting their teeth a little bit, because I'm sure that's been in the works. It has been in the works for years, but obviously they couldn't have foreseen this. So, geez, what an awful situation. And
let's not talk about Norwegian, because the fact that they don't have the MAX is a problem, but they have lots of other problems.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, there's a whole movement about some airlines thinking to rebrand the MAX when it comes back to service. Boeing hasn't announced anything itself, but there was this picture 2 months ago, just after I think we last recorded, where some of the Ryanair MAXs on the ground in the US were not branded 737 MAX, but branded 737-A200.
Yeah.
Which is a way to kind of say it's not a MAX, but whatever. I mean,
I wonder if this is, that's probably a strategy they are going to take, isn't it? I mean, they're going to try and obfuscate this tarnished brand as much as they can.
Some surveys, I'm not sure how reliable they are, but asked the flying public, I think more than 50% say they would like not to fly that. But once it's back into service, will they actually care? Will they really not fly Ryanair if there's a MAX in service? I'm not actually entirely sure, to be honest.
And will they know, frankly?
Exactly, yeah. Most people do not check, apps like we do to know that which aircraft are you going to be flying in. I don't think so. But maybe that's why Ryanair is slightly altering the name. I mean, we'll see. But that's not the end of the issues for Boeing, because they just had a little incident at one of the last testing of the 777X.
Yeah, this was extraordinary. They were doing a static pressurization test, which is when they increase the pressure inside and I think outside to kind of maximize the differential between the pressure inside and the pressure outside. And it blew one of the doors off. It's lucky that nobody was injured. A lot of commentators were quick to say that the environment that was being created was physically impossible to create in the real world. This was sort of, okay, X is the limit that we would encounter in nature, so let's test it to 20X.
The same they do when they
when they bend the wings.
Yeah, they bend the wings to extend that is almost super crazy. But I think the only irony, of course, in that specific test is, of course, things like this happen and it's a setback for Boeing. But the FAA inspectors were actually watching.
Yeah, the FAA inspectors and I think some customers as well. So
that's not great, yeah.
No, and one wonders if, had we not been talking about the MAX for so long and this had happened in isolation, and if we even would have heard of it.
You might be absolutely right, actually. You might be absolutely right. Well, more setbacks for Boeing, but as we keep saying, they will recover, they will come back. But it's true that it's not great news for all those customers lined up waiting for the 777X because it has been now, of course, delayed. And we know that some of the big airlines of this world are really expecting it, especially in the line of like removing the 380 from their fleet. I think we'll talk about in the next or following episode because I flew Emirates recently. I think Sir Tim Clark is not really happy about the state of airplane quality these days, actually. Since still because of the MAX, actually, still because of Boeing, Air France is looking into wanting Airbus to make a 220-500, which would be a large version of the ex-Bombardier C series, because that will actually fill a gap, which is, of course, not having the MAX, for instance, and being very close to the 320, of course, in 319. But that could be one of the unintended consequences of that lengthy delay, is that Airbus might be looking at, and I think I said it, I think the 300 is the base model, not the 100, meaning that extending the 300 shouldn't be too hard, and the 500 series could be easily done.
That airplane is proving to be incredibly popular.
Yeah, and now guys in the US have flown it. I mean, if you fly Delta, you probably have flown it. You flew Delta, we'll go there, but you haven't flown that, right?
I haven't flown that. No, not with Delta. I've flown it, obviously, here in Europe, but not in America.
So I just said earlier that let's not talk about Norwegian, but let's talk just a minute about Norwegian. We had one of the listeners on Twitter, Miles King, asked us, he's planning his honeymoon to Norway in May 2020, and basically would like to know, do you guys think that Norwegian will still be in business? Honestly,
I hope so. But
hard.
Boy, I mean, they're trying to put out bonds. They're trying to do restructure debt. The CEO who was the founder, just stepped down. It's not looking good. It's not looking good. I mean, I really want them to be okay. And maybe the MAX is going to be the long, slow bleed that actually kills them. Yeah,
that could be it. You're right. They are currently renegotiating the repayment of I think 2 bonds, which is around, $400 million. That's not nothing. And to see at what point Norwegian is looking into making this work, they are offering as collateral their slots at Gatwick. They know that it's the last stretch because these are very valuable and a key element for them as well. So if the bondholders accept this plan, the airline will be able to fly, at least if not other thing happens, until 2021. If they refuse, I mean, Norwegian has launched a cost-saving program. It's a low cost. You're kind of wondering where the cost will be saved, but I mean, a cost-saving program, which is pretty big. The only good news for them is that they have reached an agreement with Rolls-Royce about the Trent 1000, that famous Dreamliner engine. Nobody mentions the number, but they say they are looking good. So Norwegian says they're looking good, and at the same time, it's not looking good for Rolls-Royce. But honestly, frankly, Miles, May 2020, my answer would go to not bet on them still being there by then. I wish, but no.
Make sure that you've got good travel insurance if you do book.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, because if they go out of business, there are some more sort of quasi-state organizations, ABTA, people like that will step in and help. But that's not really going to help. One wonders if Norwegian have to sacrifice elements of their business. Would they sacrifice long haul or short haul? I don't know. I don't know which one makes the money, if any.
If any, exactly. So basically, Miles, do not get wowed. And wow is reborn. What is happening right there, Alex?
Yeah, I don't. This is the weirdest thing, and because I sent you this article on Secret Flying about they're resuming flights. They're going to be based out of the U.S.
I think they're flying from Dulles.
From Dulles in D.C. They're going to be between Dulles and Reykjavik, and you replied saying something about a person that was mentioned in the article that I thought was a non sequitur, and I was like, what the hell is he talking about? But it mentions this woman, the CEO, Michelle Ballerin, who I'd never heard of. So I Googled her.
Oh my God.
Holy shnikes. She's an arms dealer. She's got quite a story behind her. She's an heiress. She's been in hostage negotiations. She's quite a person.
Yeah.
She was hired to do these negotiations with Somali jihadists, and now she's running the reincarnation of WoW.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, I have these kind of almost admiration. She's a John Le Carre character or something. I don't know anything about it. It's like this. We probably read the same article because I Googled her. I was like, what?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that bodes well for the company, but at least she bought back the rights. I think even the actual logo and everything. So the planes will be maybe the same. And again, a low cost, only one plane to start with. But I don't know why she goes for it, but maybe she loves Reykjavik. I don't know, but
I feel like with her pedigree, there's a lot more to this than meets the eye.
Spies flying from DC to Reykjavik. There's something going on right there.
Sounds fascinating.
So let's go to the travels. Alex was, as I said at the top of the show, Alex was about to move to the US with his family for the summer, and I was about to go to Asia. Let's start with Alex. I think you flew from Heathrow to San Jose with BA at the time that they were not striking, and with a Dreamliner.
That's right. Yeah, with a 7879, and yeah, it's BA economy is consistently good on that route. They're really, really good, and we've tried to dissect all of the various unions and the various crew groups or whatever they are, and to try to find some patterns, but that is consistently the best experience I've had in economy on BA is that route. I don't know if it's the plane, I don't know if it's the routing or what it is, but it's always as good as it can be for economy in BA.
Meaning, if you were to do it again, I mean, I know you've done it a lot in the past. Would you, and I don't even know if AA flies to San Jose, but let's pretend they do. Would you choose economy BA over economy AA?
Oh, absolutely. I think I've mentioned before, but I'll say it out loud that BA economy is better than American economy. Long haul. Short haul, it's not even a competition because of the way that the U.S. domestic product is structured. But yeah, they were good, and it was a pretty eventful flight.
Yeah, I was about to ask because I remember we were exchanging. Come on, tell us a little bit of this backstory right here.
It was the five. I have three kids, and we were about to board, and my middle son Jack was like, I don't feel very well. And we're like, okay, well, we just had lunch. He probably ate too much or too quickly, and he is prone to some air sickness from time to time. So we give him this anti-nausea medicine, or not even it's like just travel sickness thing for kids, and that usually works pretty well. But we get on the plane, we're taxiing out. It's one of those afternoon flights, so it's busy at Heathrow, and long taxi, long wait. And he's just not doing well. And before we even finished taxiing, he's being sick. We were the second row back from the bulkhead. My wife was in the bulkhead with my daughter in the middle, and I had the two boys with me on the side in the three seats there. So there was a row where the flight attendant sits at the emergency exit, a row at the emergency exit, and then us. And as soon as the flight attendants were released by the flight deck, this young female flight attendant came straight up to me and she said, "He's not doing very well, is he?" And I said, "No, he's not." She immediately clocked that there was a problem, came to us with all of these sort of like lots of tissues and sick bags and blankets and everything. And then he did not get better. He got much worse very quickly. And she was absolutely on it. We didn't have to ask. She just came and checked on him every 20 minutes, brought him water. As his condition got worse and worse, she came back and she gave him anti-nausea medicine, which they have in this first aid cabinet in the galley. And then she brought him some stuff to prevent him from getting dehydrated.
Yeah.
And she took him back to the galley and put down they have those bench seats that the crew sit on. She set up one of those so he could lie on it because the plane was absolutely rammed. She was unbelievable. And we never, ever, ever had to ask. She knew that something wasn't right.
Just did it, yeah.
As we were sort of moving towards northern Canada, in between Greenland and northern Canada, the captain came back and said, "My colleague has briefed me on the situation. We've filed the plan to divert with Canadian Air Traffic Control." The captain kind of looked at me in the eye and said, "It's not an issue if we have to go somewhere else. Your son's safety and well-being and health is far more important than a little bit of on-time performance here. So you give me the word and we'll do it." And mercifully, we didn't have to. He started to recover, I would say almost completely, in part to this flight attendant's tenacity and, forward thinking and proactivity. She was so good, so good. And they had arranged for a wheelchair at the gate, and they asked if we needed an ambulance at the gate. And we by that point he'd perked up considerably, and so we said no, we didn't. But as soon as the plane landed, they brought us up to business class, and they gave him somewhere to sit down. And while the rest of the aircraft was deplaning and we were waiting for the wheelchair to arrive, the captain brought us up to the flight deck, and the kids sat in. They put their hats on them and gave them a bunch of stickers. It was BA at the top of their game, and they couldn't have done more. They couldn't have done more. I was so impressed.
Amazing.
I wrote to everybody I could think of to say thank you. I don't know if it will ever get to the people that really mattered on that flight, but it was such a gold star for BA. And I can't thank them enough. I want to go on record on this and say thank you, BA. You couldn't have done more in this really uncomfortable situation.
Wow. I had to lay down of most of it, but not that detailed. And I saw the happy ending because you sent me some pictures of your kids with their hats and everything. I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and he was fine as soon as we got home. He was fine, but goodness,
Oh wow.
there's nothing that makes you feel more helpless than seeing your kid sick at 36,000 feet somewhere over the North Atlantic because you can do
my
nothing.
Yeah. Wow, almost a diversion. So you just said you did. You were finally home in the US, but not for very long because you did that crazy trip. You had to come back to Europe. So not only it was crazy in terms of timings, and you let us know, but it was also cool because you tried finally a different airline, which is Delta.
Yeah, I had to do this thing, and I think perhaps in our last episode I talked about trying to pull this trip together. It was midweek, last minute, international trip that, of course, with no Saturday night stay, was obscenely expensive to try and put together, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So I hacked something together that would mean that I was gone for the least amount of time, which with a sick kid, I wanted to make sure was the case, but also wouldn't break the bank. So I did San Francisco, Detroit, Amsterdam, Dublin, Dallas, San Francisco in a basically like a 32-hour period. I was only on the ground. I was speaking in Amsterdam. I was on the ground in Amsterdam for a few hours and then came back. But yes, I did.
And that's a day after you landing in the US. So you land, you're jet-lagged-ish, and then, let's go back.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think my Uber picked me up at 3 o'clock in the morning to catch a 6 a.m. flight from San Francisco to Detroit on Delta. So yeah, that was interesting. And as you said, it was a lot of new experiences. So part of the refurbished monster that is becoming Terminal 1 and 2 at San Francisco Airport, the new Delta Lounge, which I think I told you was really, really good. Bright and airy. It's kind of you go up above the terminal and you're looking out over the domestic apron. You're kind of looking southwest, if you know that airport well. You're looking towards the sort of the San Mateo Bridge and then the mountains over to the East Bay. Very bright and airy. I got there long before it opened, and there was a queue to get in by the time it actually did open, but very, very strong lounge. Delta are quite an anomaly in the US because I think they're crafting a very, very strong and cohesive experience, as most of the American airlines seem to be. And the disconnect with all of them, which was kind of my thesis for experimentation for this summer, because I was flying a lot on US airlines, is the product itself, the physical product, is very good. It's just the service that's so inconsistent.
Yeah.
And sort of in economy, that was kind of my test, because I flew San Francisco to Detroit in economy, and forgive me, I have to look up because I can't actually remember what kind of airplane it was.
737, because you sent it
That's
to
right.
me.
It was a 737-8, I think, and I had this weird seat that you occasionally get on these configurations where there was nobody in front of you. There's like the seat is missing.
Oh, wow, cool.
It's this sort of weird emergency exit row where there's nobody in front of you. So, which is great because you essentially have unlimited legroom. But wonderfully, Delta, as pretty much every U.S. domestic airline have got IFE, but it's touchscreen. So you're like, you have to undo your seatbelt to change the TV channel, and all of that, which didn't matter. Short flight, like just under 3 hours. And I just had the map on because I was watching stuff on Netflix. But live TV, Wi-Fi, power at the seat, as standard. The cabin crew were really friendly. You got basic snacks, I think, just coffee and soft drinks and a biscuit or whatever. But then there was food available to buy. The quality of the product is so high compared to what we're used to in Europe that you go over there and you're shocked by it. Quite frankly.
Yeah. Well, in Europe, we really get the no frills, even with traditional airlines. We don't get power. Wi-Fi is still spotty, and the seats are okay. I'm not complaining, but it's true that, I'll come to that much later, but it's true that in the US, the disconnect is, you're right, the service probably, sometimes the airports can be a little more cold, I guess, like more like bus stops. I keep using the term bus stops, and I know from American friends, I'm not condescending here. I'm just saying the way that Americans travel with airplanes is a bit different than the way we travel with airplanes in Europe.
Yeah.
And he feels like, it's just a convenience to have an airport, and then you get on the product. Whereas in Europe, the airport is as part of the experience. They want to sell you stuff. You have super nice shops and whatever. So that's probably the difference. So let's not do Detroit, because that's what we're going to do at the end. But maybe you went to a lounge in Detroit. Did you have time?
No, I didn't have time to get into a lounge in Detroit. Oh, actually, you know what I did? I stopped in to, I don't even remember what lounge it was. Oh, it was, no, actually, I don't even remember. I don't even remember what lounge it was. But it was...
You were probably in Concourse A, because that's where most of the international flights leave from, and you were going to Amsterdam with Delta, so probably that's where you were. And
yeah.
I'm sure all Delta fans will tell us there's like 20 billion, lounges in that concourse, and which one is the best. But usually, as I might have done, I would have gone to the closest to my gate, because I don't know them.
It was an airport that surprised me. We'll come back to it at the end of it, but I was really impressed. And the connecting flight, of course, that is a sort of Northwest legacy route of Detroit to Amsterdam. And Detroit is a focus city as well for Delta. But that kind of Delta... Detroit Amsterdam connection is huge. So I was excited about this flight because it was one of these kind of legacy flagship routes, but also it was on a Delta 350.
Aha.
And that surprised me because they have like 15 of them already.
Wow. And
I only thought maybe they had one or two because they haven't shouted about it. And I just, that I love that airplane. I think it's a fantastic airplane.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I looked at upgrading from economy to a premium economy, because that's the only plane that Delta have premium economy on. Because of the way the American systems work, unless you are part of their loyalty program, it's nigh on impossible to get upgraded, to even pay for it. There's no like promotional upgrade fare, which you so often get basically anywhere outside of the US. You can pay whatever it might be to go from one cabin to the next. Just not impossible. It didn't really matter because I had an exit row. I had acres of space. But here's the thing. There's two things struck me about this experience. One, when you got on the airplane, it could have been a 25-year-old 767. There was nothing about this airplane that made it feel new, that made it feel different, that made it feel fresh. So often when an airline takes delivery of a new generation airplane, they use it as an opportunity to enhance the cabin experience. Yeah. There was nothing about this experience that made it feel like this was a new and revolutionary airplane, other than what we know is standard about the 350, which is it's quieter. It doesn't feel as as claustrophobic or you don't feel the effects of the cabin humidity or pressure as much as some of its predecessors. But I was really surprised by that. There was nothing revolutionary about the experience. The service was poor, frankly. It was aloof and uninterested, and they spent most of the time talking with each other and playing on their company issued devices. I don't know what they were, some kind of tablets to try and fix problems or look at the loads or whatever. It was not even friendly. I slept the whole way because I had to go from the airplane to the airport to the stage, so I wanted to. I didn't eat. The menu looked. You were handed a menu, and this was right after Delta had introduced these cabin service enhancements, where you were going to get a welcome drink in economy. You were going to get a printed menu, which I did on both of those. The food, as menus are supposed to do, promised high. I didn't see what it was like, but I stepped off that plane going, there was nothing special about that experience. Nothing.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, well, we will have now the Delta fans going come on, what? Can you tell us?
But, and they're probably right. I'm sure that the premium economy and premium cabins are excellent. And that was one experience with one crew. The only things I could objectively observe was the inside of the airplane. Of course, the IFE was very good and in depth, but so many of the American systems are, so it wasn't a differentiator as far as I'm concerned.
It's amazing. You remember, guys, I flew Delta last year from Manila to Tokyo. Of course, that's a different, but the point is, for us, what is interesting in these experiences is that it's not only a new airline. I mean, I used to fly Delta a lot, but we don't have status. We're not considered anything special. And usually we fly one world where we have status. So even if you're in economy, you're going to get maybe sometimes greeted and everything. So that's it's always interesting to fly the way you did, because it's a very, very different way. Yeah. So then you had your speech, but you didn't opt to fly back with Delta. You flew back with Aer Lingus or something?
I did, yeah. It actually worked out much cheaper to kind of hack this fare together. So San Francisco to Amsterdam on Delta was a one-way booking, and then I found a fare that was Dublin, Dallas, San Francisco on American in business, which was also very reasonable. And again, it's important to reiterate that one-way fare to Amsterdam and then in business, Dublin, Dallas, San Francisco was cheaper by about $1,000 than doing San Francisco, Amsterdam, San Francisco in economy.
Wow.
Just because the airline fare systems are
revenue,
insane.
Whatever. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I was worried about the connection time, I actually booked a KLM flight and I booked an Aer Lingus flight.
Oh.
That left at around the same time. The KLM flight was about an hour earlier. I didn't know if the event was going to run on time. I didn't know what security was going to be like at Amsterdam. And so I booked a fully refundable fare on both, just so that whichever one I didn't take, I could cancel and get my money back. I kept an eye on it, on the on-time performance of both. And I guess that the KLM flight is operated by Stobart Air, who have a horrendous on-time performance reputation. So I opted for Aer Lingus, and there was a massive tech failure at Amsterdam outbound immigration and security. So it took a lot longer.
It's funny
than
because
I
I kept telling Alex, don't worry, Amsterdam security, now they have these new machines. You basically don't do anything. You walk through a portal and that's it. It's done. And then you walk to another portal, you're scanning, it's done. And Alex is like, Paul, nothing is working. Everything is backed up. Yeah. I mean, what? Wow.
It was backed up. Luckily, the event ran on time. And of course, Amsterdam Airport Schiphol is so easy to get to and so close to town that I was fine. I opted for the Aer Lingus flight. And that was just they have Aer Lingus. I don't fly very often, and I'd forgotten that it's a single class setup on their 319 320s, and that was a little bit delayed, but nothing bad. The service was fine, nothing to write home about. I was in the first row just so I could get off the plane quickly.
Sorry to interrupt you right here, but of course we don't fly Aer Lingus because for some reason they're still not part of One World. We have no understanding what's going on right there. They were bought by IAG, but they're not part of One World.
They're like the Pluto of our solar system, right? Are they a planet or are they not a planet? They sort of are, but they behave like a planet, but they're not a planet. I should go back and look and see if I got anything for that, like even a tier point bonus or a mileage bonus.
Something, yeah.
I'm sure I didn't. So one of the benefits of going through Dublin, and one of the reasons why I picked this route, is that I could do U.S. immigration.
Oh, yeah.
If you have ever transited through DFW, which I did actually about a week ago, and we'll talk about that in another episode, it's not good. It's not a fun experience. Immigration there is horrendous. Customs there is horrendous. But I didn't have to worry about that because I was going from a domestic arrival to a domestic connection. However, Dublin pre-clearance was like nothing I had ever seen before. There must have been over 1,000 people in the queue.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it didn't matter if you were American or not. The queue was monstrous. And I was watching the clock going, I don't think I'm going to make this. And I turned to somebody, an immigration official, and they said, look, if I can give you one piece of comfort, it's that everybody else is in the same boat. So if 80% of the flight is stuck in the queue with you, don't worry. They're not going to go with it.
So hold on. That was what? That was entry immigration into Ireland? That was U.S. customs, U.S. border?
It was U.S. The
U.S. clearance.
U.S. border. So getting into Ireland, I didn't...
no, you don't have to. I think they're not part of Schengen.
They're not part of Schengen, but you get routed around this weird sort of back area of the terminal, and then you get dumped into U.S. pre-clearance.
Oh,
and
there you go.
I saw the line and I thought, oh, this is clearly for non-U.S. citizens. And I said to the person, where's the U.S. citizen line? And he's like, no, there. And it was sort of this extension of an extension of an extension of a queue system that backed up well into the terminal and then went around the hall. They'd set up all of these tents of barriers to try and corral people, and then downstairs and then upstairs. The process itself to get into immigration was 30 seconds once they'd actually processed you. It was just the sheer volume of people, because Aer Lingus have 7 or 8 flights to the US at least. And then there was a couple of American flights and a few other Fifth Freedom routes that were going. It was absolutely like nothing I'd ever seen. One of the Aer Lingus flight attendants told me she'd never seen it this bad before.
Wow.
It was the good news was good/bad news was that my flight was delayed anyway because the inbound flight was delayed. So it was all moot. And once I'd seen that, my stress levels kind of went through the floor because I didn't want to miss my connection in Dallas. And it didn't take forever to get home. But I would definitely not do that again. And I don't know if any of you guys listening have done that U.S. pre-clearance in Dublin before. I would love to know how your experience was. There was global entry. I really need to sign up for global entry because every time I get into a U.S. immigration queue, I keep saying to myself, I really need to get into to global entry. But yeah, it was quite an experience. Dublin Airport is a crap hole.
I actually do agree, because even trying to get into Ireland, if you're traveling from the UK, you don't have to clear. It's like domestic for those who don't know. But if you come from continental Europe, it's always queues. It's like, for me, it's like Brussels. I hate these 2 airports. They always like backed up. The layout is bad. I don't like them. I'm sure we're gonna get like some Irish friends like bashing us. But so maybe anything to report about the flights themselves with AA?
I was in business in a 787. It was excellent. Nice. The service was outstanding. The IFE was outstanding. The food was outstanding. They don't have first on this cabin, so I was in 1A.
Nice.
Yeah, it was the first time I'd done business on the Dreamliner with AA, and it's the standard seat that everybody seems to have, that Cathay have. I can't remember the name. Is it Recaro that make it? No, it's not. It's no, I don't remember who makes it, but it's a very good seat, very comfortable seat. I slept for a little bit. That is a good product. It really is a good product. Because my American flight from Dublin to Dallas was delayed, they automatically rebooked my Dallas San Francisco flight to the later flight. But the thing is that we pulled back almost the entire delay on the flight. So I could have easily made the connection, but they'd given my seat away on that flight.
Yeah.
That pissed me off a little bit because they only had one person working the desk at Dallas for the San Francisco flight who was trying to process all of the standbys. And I'm like, I don't want to be a jerk about this, but I feel like my situation is slightly more important than a standby person.
Yeah.
Like, you've given away my seat on a flight that I have paid for. So I had to wait in a really kind of dank and depressing Admirals Club. And I was tired by this point. My flight didn't get in San Francisco until 1 a.m. So I'm a big fan of American's premium product. But yeah, it was, by the time I got home, I was very, very tired and slept for a long time. But it was a very interesting research trip for the purposes of this podcast.
Yeah, wow, that was cool. Actually, I'll get to AA in a moment. Let's not spill the beans for the moment. So, you landed back into San Francisco. So you mentioned that they are upgrading the whole thing. The one thing that everybody talked about in the summer is that they removed the plastic bottles, the small water plastic bottles, which at face value, to me, looked like a great idea. Obviously, everybody does that. We've heard about even airlines removing single-use plastics in there. The only problem is they literally removed small bottles of water. So you cannot buy that. But you can still buy small bottles of soda, and you can still buy big bottles of water. So basically, if you want water, but you want a small bottle, that means that people will end up buying Coca-Cola. And I just don't understand. Either you remove the entire plastics, all the bottles, but not just the bottle of water. For me, it makes no sense.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that in effect when we went through on various trips out of San Francisco through over the summer. There were still selling bottles of water at restaurants. I think
he went into force last week, early September, maybe.
Yeah,
so maybe that's why.
It's because they have all these. It's great. You can fill up a water bottle in San Francisco. It's something that we use all the time with the kids because they've got these big thermos type thingies that we.
Yeah, even here in the UK, it's more and more the case. More and more people, carry their own thermostat.
Yeah,
or
you're right though. It sends a mixed message. It seems a little bit kind of. What's that awful phrase? Virtue signaling. And in practice, the reality is a lot different.
Yeah. Anyway, some few news about Delta before I go to some of my flights. Again, we're not going to cover all the flights. There's been many during the summer. That's going to be for the next episode. About Delta, first, thanks to Eric Hoffman at The Husband in Tow. I didn't know that Delta Airlines had once a month a surplus sale with all their equipment that they're not using. And he sent us a video, and you can see trolleys, seats, cutlery, toys, bins, overhead bins for crying out loud, lavatories, the entire set of a lavatory, curtains, employee outfits. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that existed. It seems to be a monthly. Yeah. So for wow. Guys, if you've ever been to one of these things, these sales, just let us know. There's some like overhead bins. I'm going to install overhead bins in my office.
Yeah.
It's so cool. The other thing that we talked about a little bit, you and me, Alex, you remember that Delta 757 that was flying from JFK to the Azores, and on landing, I don't know what kind of rough landing happened. I don't know if you guys seen this, but the plane was literally torn.
Yeah, it kind of buckled, didn't it? And it tore the skin on the top of the fuselage.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that it landed on the nose gear, and that often landed hard on the nose gear. And some types of airplane are not designed to take that level of torque on the fuselage. A lot of airliners are, but this particular one wasn't. And yeah, you could see like the buckle in the skin and the fuselage.
The images were like insane. I cannot even think about how rough that landing must have been as a passenger point of view. I don't know. Just I've never seen that. Do you think the plane that's a write-off?
I think well, it's funny. You read on the AV Herald, people saying that Delta will fix this. This is kind of a very Delta thing to do.
Yeah. Probably. Talking about old aircraft, they're going to fly their MD-90 until 2022. So you still have 2.5 years to fly them if you'd like. These are aircraft that are disappearing fast. We're not happy about it, but, they're old aircraft. One thing that also happened when we were not recording, and I just had to put it there, that, Independence Day Trump speech about airports, where he mentioned airports in 76. And there was Max Sweeney's who wrote this fantastic article. I'm just going to Quote, one that part that I love. When the British marched through Terminal 2 and stopped to ask if they could order from the Delta Sky Club menu, the Minutemen attacked. I mean, guys, I mean, there were so many memes that came out, but that article by Mike Sweeney's, it's called The Battle at John F. Kennedy International Airport in 1776, is amazing. You have to read that, no matter what you think about the U.S. president. You were talking about getting upgrades on Delta. Officer Wayfinder, whom we mention quite often, on his blog, officerwayfinder.com, just look for Flying Delta upgrades, and he literally lists all the type of upgrades you can get and how that works for Delta. It's a very well done blog post. And what I love about it is it avoids all the, I'm not going to mention names, but all the usual, 25 pop-ups and credit card stuff that a lot of the other types of website have. So I really encourage you to go, if you are flying Delta either for the first time or often, officerwayfinder.com, and look for the post called Flying Delta Upgrades. It's really well documented. Maybe something you should have read before you flew, because maybe you could have found a way to get upgraded. I don't know. I mean, I haven't flown Delta besides that flight in Tokyo I mentioned, like for a long time. You mentioned the Delta Club, you were in San Francisco, correct?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so he says that SFO, so the same Office Wayfinder says that SFO Club is really nice and one of his favorites. So he's a very heavy Delta flyer. Great food, he says, with better runway ramp views. And he mentions that at Detroit, since we're going to mention that at the end, the club by gate A68 and the one by gate A18 have great ramp views, but limited food. And the main club, which is situated at gate 838, doesn't have the ramp views, but is much larger and has better food. So I guess you have to choose between the views and the food, which is always a hard choice for for us. Delta, since I keep saying in this episode that I flew them last to Narita, I used to fly, as you guys know, I was a Sky Team. I was Platinum at Air France KLM. I used to fly a lot Northwest, actually, and then Delta acquired them. And I was flying a lot from, obviously, Tokyo, and then I moved to the Philippines, and I was doing almost commuting, doing this route between Manila and Narita very, very often. And I have so many memories, especially because I love Northwest. I have less, appeal with Delta. But Delta is abandoning Narita. That's done. I mean, it's almost kind of written, but because we've been talking about, Haneda for a long time. So Delta, which is basically they almost built Narita. Of course, Northwest did.
Yeah.
Is abandoning it completely. In the next season, I think it's starting at the end of the year or something. They're going to transfer everything to Haneda. And they're going to shift service. The Manila service that I used to use, they won't exist anymore. They will be replaced for a route between Haneda and Incheon. So the route I used to take doesn't exist anymore. I'm so sad about this. But I mean, I guess it's, Narita is really marginalized, I guess.
Yeah, it does. There's so much focus on Haneda as for pure convenience, but a lot of airlines seem to be pulling back from. It's. Don't you think it's strange? It feels.
No, I think there's a vicious circle happening right there because airlines are moving to Haneda, then Narita is losing its connecting traffic appeal. You land somewhere and then, you have to switch airports. And you guys just look at episodes in the past, I had to switch airports from time to time, which back when I was living in Japan never happened. You had everything in Narita. So even if you were in unprotected connections and switching airlines, you would do everything from Narita. So the more airlines move to Haneda, which is arguably closer to the city. I mean, no, it's not arguably. It is closer to the city. I say arguably because in terms of timing, it can be sometimes the same from Narita, but the less connecting traffic there is, the less incentive there is for an airline to create a hub in Narita because they're like, why would you stay here?
Yeah.
Well, might as well. And Haneda has opened a lot of routes. Yeah. And I was in Narita. I'll go there in a few, but yeah, it more and more feels like more like a Gatwick, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a very good airport, but like a secondary airport. No disrespect here to Gatwick, but and it's a bit sad because, again, I mean, sad. That's pure emotional. But I think Northwest landed first in Tokyo in July 1947. I mean, of course, that was not Narita. Narita was only built in the end of the 70s or something. And they were, before even Pan Am, they were Northwest of the first. So there's this long-standing relationship. They were the first one to move to Narita when it opened. I think in 78 it opened or something. And they had all these fifth freedom routes. That's why I kept flying Northwest and then Delta, because they have these fifth freedom routes that they obviously often criticize the Middle Eastern airlines for having, but they cover Asia like this. And I was living in Japan when Delta took over from Northwest. That was 2008. At that time, Northwest had 19 cities from Narita, so it was really an important hub. And now it's, I mean, I get it. Economically, probably I get it, but it's just for me, maybe because I have this emotional relationship with Northwest, I'm a bit sad. That's all.
No, it's a shame. And you see this attrition happening, especially for long haul. United are pulling back quite a lot as well. And yeah, it's a shame.
Actually, United was started flying to Narita. I think that's just a trivia. I think they started Tokyo. Sorry, not Narita. When they bought Pan Am's Pan Am Pacific assets. I think that's what that is. So talking about Narita, have you seen the pictures of the typhoon the other day?
Yes.
And wow, that never happens.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
15,000 people. And it was nuts because people were quick to criticize, I hate Narita immigration, which I will defend until my death. No, it was that there was no train running. So after you would go out for immigration, you were stuck in the airport and there were no train runnings for, I think, 11 or 12 hours, which is very rare in Japan. And because it was the typhoon was pretty, so I had a friend, Jeff, he's a VC, and he was stuck. He told me, I think it took still 2 hours to clear immigration just because it was, a lot of people and there's just no room to go forward. And then he stayed waiting for a train for 8.5 hours. That's not fun anyway. But I mean, what can they do? It's not, it's a typhoon, right? I had a typhoon in Vietnam. I'll go to that in a few episodes. It was quite impressive as well. So you always love AA. A few news. American Airlines will tweak its first class products, so the one in the US, I'm talking domestic first class. They will add legroom, they will add extra in-seat power, and they will add some other amenities because passengers complained about the product that has started to be retrofitted. So I think it started 2 years ago, a new economy and a new first, but they really cut costs. Their frequent flyers are not happy. So they're saying we're going to go back to a better product for first, but not economy, sadly. So sadly, economy will stay very, 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 very tight. But the kicker, and something I don't understand, although they are announcing that they are making amendments to the first class, they will still continue to retrofit the old new first class, so the one people are not happy about, until next year. And then starting next year, they will re-go and redo all of them. I'm like, how does that make sense?
It doesn't sound like the most efficient way of doing this.
I just don't get it. Oh, I mean, well. What else? Oh, yeah, one last one about, I mentioned SkyTeam in One World. China Southern. Have you ever flown China Southern?
I have not.
They're leaving SkyTeam and going to One World.
I don't understand. I mean, that seems like it's a very, very similar overlap to Cathay, which is a whole nother story.
Yeah, we'll go there also in a few before the end of this episode. So let's go to Asia because I flew to Asia. So I flew because I wanted a deal. I needed to be in Tokyo for work, and I always look for deals, like Alex does. And of course, one of the best deals to be found in that direction are often from Stockholm. We're going to cover this airport very soon, probably even the next episode maybe, because we haven't done so. So I flew a simple BA flight to Stockholm, nothing to write home about. The only thing to write home about is when I was in the first class lounge at Heathrow. I took a very early flight, unprotected connection. Wanted to make sure that even I have plenty of time at Stockholm airport to connect with Qatar, which is the airline I flew. So I am in the first class lounge that you know very well, Alex, as well. And it's pretty empty. It's early in the morning and it's not a Monday. And suddenly this girl sits literally next to me, and there's a lot of other seats. And my first reaction is I mean, come on, why would you sit just next to me? I mean, I didn't say it, I just thought, you know. And then I look at her, and it's Carre Delevingne, that famous model and actress. And then I changed my mind and I said, no, you can actually stay here, and it's really nice. And I ended up actually chatting with her. She was super chatty and super cool. We had coffee, so now I can say that I didn't ask for a selfie, but I can say I had coffee with Carre Delevingne, which is pretty cool for her. Yeah, it's a checkbox thing. So I mean, Stockholm. Too much time to spare. So I wanted to try, and I tried the rest fly. The rest fly are like day rooms you can get at Stockholm Airport. They're pretty cheap, and I try them just for a nap for 2 hours. It's really good. So I can recommend them there. It's very sparse. It's like IKEA type of rooms, right? Do not expect anything like, you know, the Oryx Hotel at Doha or whatever. But for a nap, or for if you have a long layover, because you do like us, you reposition yourself to find a good deal, I can actually recommend it. It's very easy. You don't have to pre-book whatever. They have enough rooms. It's shared bathrooms and shared shower facilities. That's the only thing if you're not into that kind of stuff, but it was perfect. I would do that again. So then I'm in front of Qatar Airways checking. I had to check in because I was actually taking a luggage with me, which I rarely do. And, you know, usually before, because we're diligent, you write your API, your advanced passenger information on the management booking, you know, your passport information, etc. I had done that. So not only they were reviewing with you all the information that you had inputted already, but they were asking every single passenger their mobile phone number. They didn't only ask that at the check-in, they re-asked me at the gate when I was boarding.
They asked you for your mobile number.
Everybody. Oh, not only me. Nobody was trying to hit on me. There was not Carre Delevingne asking me for my mobile number, guys. But it's... I never had. I didn't ask why, but they were very insisting. They were talking about all the passengers. I don't know what they were doing. You know, and GDPR is in effect in Stockholm. So there must have been some security reason, maybe, but it never happened to me. They were insisting. They were really insisting. So Qatar Airways first flight was what was it? 350, I think. I don't remember. But anyway, it was, you know, the very nice seat to the lie flat, no, the Q suite. Very clever menu. What I liked about it, so it was a late, because I stayed literally the entire day in Stockholm. It was a night flight. It was very clever because they had like one very tasty menu for food, but clearly made so that you could eat quickly and sleep, because, you know, the flight is only like 6 hours. You don't really have time to sleep otherwise. So that was really well done. It was more like tasting bites than actually a full. You could order on top if you want, you know, like these airlines do. They have like so much to order food from. But I thought that was clever the way they did it. It was not fastened, as in they were like not hurrying you to eat, but it was cleverly done in a way that, oh, I can eat like in 20 minutes and then be done with it and go to sleep.
That's
I didn't need
the way it should be.
Yeah. It was also the most elegant captain ever. Probably the guy was from Indian descent, but born and raised in the UK. But I think if I ever had to do calendars with like the most elegant captains in the world, that's the one I would put in the cover. This guy represents everything I wanted to be as a kid. I was like, this guy is not only has the perfect accent, but also the perfect demeanor. It was the perfect captain. I should have recorded the announcement he was making. I was like, this is absolutely freaking perfect.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm sorry. It's purely stupid what I'm saying here, but I don't know. I was a kid. I was looking at this guy like, I want to be that guy when I grow up. In Doha, I landed in Concourse E, and I was leaving to Concourse E to Hong Kong because that's where I was transiting to. So my good fare was not directly to Tokyo. I stayed in Concourse E in Doha. The funny bit is we land there and it couldn't find a business class bus. So because they couldn't find a business class bus, instead of giving us an economy class bus, I guess there were more available, we just had to wait in the flight for 30 minutes. And you're like, okay, I understand you want to give us like great service, Qatar, guys. And really, for me, this one, if not one of the top 3 airlines in the world for me right now in terms of quality. But that is like, guys, it's okay. We can be in a normal bus, you know, like, so it's a bit bizarre. I mean,
that is bizarre.
Yeah. And I mean, it's fine. I guess they wanted to, and they were really cool about it, right? They were really good about it. What I love every time I have a delay with Qatar, And I had one, which I'll mention probably in the next episode because I won't have time today. And sometimes you just wait. I was in business class, fine, but sometimes you just wait. There, as soon as there's a delay, all the staff come to you and start apologizing in person, not with a PA announcement. They apologize in person. They go like almost full service on you for 30 minutes. Wow. They do not just say, oh, wait. So you basically like, okay, so I'm just going to watch a little bit of the IFE and take another sip of champagne. So why not, right?
Yeah.
But still, I mean, they couldn't find a business class bus.
That's kind of funny.
Then I was supposed to fly 350 Q Suite 777 Q Suite to Hong Kong from Doha. And I enter the aircraft and I'm like, yeah, well, this is not a Q Suite. And this is the old 777 product. So it's 222. So they were so good. The crew was so good at managing the potential disappointment that I almost forgot that there was no Q Suite. I mean, it's still nice to have a Q Suite. If you had paid a lot of money just to have the Q Suite and it's your one time in your life that you're going to fly Qatar Airways, I'm lucky to have flown it already several times, but they were very good at, kind of overcompensating for that miss. Probably, they had to do a change of aircraft. I'm sure that, they had an issue with that aircraft. They had to change it. But because of also the layout of the Q Suite, which is not 222, I basically had an entire, like almost the row for me. There was no one. I couldn't not see anyone, even though it was an old seat that is not, it's full life flight, but there's a little slope. I mean, again, the quality was not there in terms of the product, single product, but they made everything possible to make it, and thus it was actually still a very good flight. And Qatar, Qatar Airways is like a mother, because I'm like you, Alex, I don't always eat in aircrafts. I've been on a diet actually for the past 2 months it will come at the end of that. Why? Because you have something to do with that. Qatar is like a mother or a grandmother. They follow you around and say, "You sure you don't want to eat anything? But you haven't eaten anything. Are you sure you don't want to eat anything? But just some bread. I can fix you something very quickly." And you're like, "No, it's fine, really." It's almost like the next line they don't say it, like, "Don't you like our food?" You're like, "No, really, guys." And they say that with the most endearing heart that they can. It's just that it's really like a grandmother. I love it, but wow. So then I'm in Hong Kong, and I'm just staying for the night in Hong Kong. But we need to talk about Hong Kong a little bit. It wasn't happening when I was there, but we cannot not talk about Hong Kong.
No, it's been extraordinary since. I'm very proud of Hong Kong and its people because they have shown the world how to protest and how to stand up for something that you believe in or stand up against something that you don't believe in.
Yeah.
Whether I think this is a reasonably apolitical statement. Yeah, and I think that the way they have conducted themselves as a society and as a people has been exemplary in the face of interference from just about everybody, and in ways that are rather extraordinary for this type of event. I don't think we're ever going to get the full story of who is doing what and how, but on the face of it, it's something I think Hong Kong can be very proud of, and it seems to be working.
The impact on both Hong Kong Airport and Cathay has been there. Let's maybe do a Hong Kong Airport. If you were, and if you still are doing layovers, you're fine. You don't even see anything. Friends have done that actually last week. I had changed my flight. I was supposed to go through Hong Kong because I was probably too cautious, but actually it's fine. You can do it. You can go to your pier and whatever. If you are destination origin, it's still okay, but there has been a few days when the airport had to be shut down for people trying to leave it's not happening anymore, but there has been a little bit of impact because there were some protests in the departure area. Actually, the images were striking. They were like literally not a single spot was free. There were people standing. You couldn't really exit, although the police was making sure that if you were to exit after customs, you were able to. But these images were quite staggering, actually. Wow.
Yeah, and when they shut down the airport and then walking back to the various areas where the protesters could get back into Hong Kong, the images were completely extraordinary.
Yeah. And Cathay also, of course, got embroiled in this. So there was, at some point, authorities in China requested from Cathay, and please correct me, Alex, if I'm doing that wrong because I'm not entirely sure, but I think what they did is they requested from Cathay to check if any of their staff had been in any way embroiled with the protest, and if so, requested that these staff would not be put on planes that would land in mainland China. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I believe so. They wanted manifests of all crew and anyone that had even been peripherally involved in the protests to be basically handed over. They demanded a list of those people that had
Which led to the CEO left?
Yeah, so the story goes that China demanded this list. China were putting a lot of pressure on Cathay. That every flight that flew into China from Hong Kong that was a Cathay or Cathay Dragon flight was subjected to safety inspections that would go on for hours, delaying them for hours. I mean, completely from a political tactics perspective, it's really rather genius, but it's also the definition of a dick move. And so they then said, okay, perhaps this would go away if you provided us with a list of employees that are participating in the protests. And the list was submitted by Cathay to the authorities in China, and there was only one name on it. And that name was the CEO's name. And so he sort of fell on his sword to protect his employees and was then fired, quote unquote, asked to resign.
Yeah, whatever.
I think that is probably reasonably close to the truth. I know him. That is certainly in fitting with his character. And if it is true, then it is the definition of magnanimity as far as I'm concerned. It also meant that I think the chief customer officer, Paul Liu, also went as well.
I think so, yeah.
And now the chairman, John Slosser, who was the CEO a while ago, he initially had said we would never dream of preventing our staff from participating in peaceful protest. That is their right as defended by the basic law of Hong Kong. That was the end of him as soon as he said that. So he is stepping down today, actually, I think.
Yep. I think so too, yeah. There's a lot of pressure on Cathay, really.
The Cathay are in a horrendous position.
Yeah, they're in between two chairs. It's really difficult for them in terms of, because that matters somehow, in terms of ownership. Swire owns 45%, Qatar, which I just mentioned, owns 10%, Air China has 30%, and then some others have 15%. And the whole question that has been risen now is, Qatar doesn't need to sell because they have lots of money to play with. But there's a lot of movements trying Air China, will they buy Qatar's 10% to actually reach 40% and be much more closer to Swire? I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying that Cathay is sadly, of course, due to all these events, has been losing a bit of money because they have to cancel flights, because they have to make do with the mainland China demands. And pressure will keep rising. I mean, Swire is a very strong-willed company, but it's really hard to know what the future will hold.
Yeah, I know. I think you're right, and you and I talked about this vis-a-vis Air China, saying, they may attempt to buy more, as you say, and I think that Swire have the resolve to do this. But then, as we have seen hints of, China could just squeeze Cathay's neck until Swire give in.
Oh, yeah. They could simply say, oh, you know what? We were removing, rights for Cathay Dragon and whatever. There's so much stuff they could do. I'm not saying that they will.
Overflying routes and,
exactly.
These spot
It's just
checks.
fiction what we're saying here. But I mean, there is clearly pressure. The entire situation, we don't know what it's going to lead to, right? I mean, but it's, since we're an aviation podcast, I mean, Hong Kong, again, is airport. The airport works. You can go there. Friends have been there to last week. Perfect. Really, you don't have to worry. Even the city. I went to the city myself, but it was the very, very, very beginning. There was nothing. Friends have been, I think Mario, a friend of mine who lives in London as well, went last week, and he says, you can go. So it's really safe. Do not think it's like a war zone or something.
No.
But it still doesn't tell us what the future will hold, and we have no idea.
No, and I would ask anybody, go to Hong Kong, spend money there, patronize local businesses, because tourism is down significantly.
Yeah,
there.
of course.
I think down 40%.
Yeah, which is why I mentioned this, because every time we see I had a personal experience with, obviously, when there were the riots in Athens, and because of the crisis and so on and so forth. Every time, the media will show you, and clearly there has been protests, and some of these protests had some violence. We're not here dismissing that. We're saying, actually, when you go there, it's not, Syria being bombed by, it's, with all the respect to Syria here, it's so, yeah, I am the same. I regret not having connected through Hong Kong and having changed my recent flight, which I'll go to in a few episodes, but I will try to go before the end of the year.
Yeah, me too.
So I was in Hong Kong. I spent the night. I went out. It was great, as always, in Hong Kong. Spent the night at Regal Hotel, which is the one next to the airport, which is always a fantastic one to do that. And I had a very early flight with Cathay to Narita. So that was a different fare. Super early flight, which was cool because, you pass by the arrivals when you are at Regal, and then you go up and you are in departures. Arrivals, I think it's the only time in my life I've seen it empty. There was not a single person in arrivals. I think the flights hadn't started arriving, and I was super early. Cathay Pacific has a first class checking.
Yes.
And I see that, I see the little Emerald thing. So it's open apparently to Emerald. So if I'm BA Gold, I'm like, you know what? I'm not flying first, obviously. I'm going to see if they accept me. These are very, for those who don't know, they're not actual usual check-in counters. They're literally little pods with a computer on top and a crew. There was literally one, because again, it was very early in the morning. As soon as I go into the direction of the first class, I can see her oh, there's a passenger, and everything starts moving. Yeah. A guy comes, picks my luggage, and I'm like, oh my God. So everything is it's really literally super first class. They check me in, they print my boarding pass, give my boarding pass, they take my luggage away. There's no belt when they put the luggage. They literally leave with it. So it gives you this feeling. Is it over the top? Maybe, but it gives you this feeling of first class. He worked really, really well.
It's like checking in at a 5-star hotel.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. As for the rest, as always, e-gates are so damn speedy and so damn good, to the point you're wondering, did it actually scan my passport? Mm-hmm. Because he was so fast that but it's absolutely fantastic. One thing, and I'll tell that to all the airports, especially Heathrow, please learn from the SkyTrain in Hong Kong. It's actually going at a reasonable speed. The one in Heathrow goes seems like it could be faster walking. This is probably the best SkyTrain. The only downside to the SkyTrain, which I didn't know, it only starts service at 6 a.m. at Hong Kong Airport. It was 5:50 probably at that point. And I was standing in front of the SkyTrain. I'm like, why is there no SkyTrain? And it says out of service. I'm like, shit, this is not working. And I go to a clerk and I say, should I walk? And he says, no, in 3 minutes, he will say next service at 6 a.m. because we only start at 6 a.m. So I didn't know. So guys, if you're very, very early, you better walk. And my flight, and Alex, you will understand right away, my flight was at gate 63. You know what that means?
Yes.
I was in the pier. It was a great start of the day. Then I flew a 777-300 ER, superb flight. It's horrible that I have nothing to say about that flight because it means I'm getting used to Cathay business class, and that's really bad because if you get used to Cathay business class, then you disappoint in pretty much everything else. Yeah. Then I landed in Narita in the short runway B as they call it. So, and you heard me earlier talking about that. I keep defending Narita for many reasons. I still find it that if you are going to the east side of Tokyo, it's actually faster. Even for me, the west side, I was staying in Shibuya, it's still an hour, which is more than acceptable. If you count the time it takes you to take the monorail, which is short, but then you have to transfer to another. It's actually pretty much the same. But I understand that you guys prefer Haneda. There's no immigration. Immigration was always the thing I said. Immigration is much better at Narita than Haneda. Not because it's a better layout, just because Haneda doesn't give a S. As in, you go, every time I go at least to Haneda, international arrivals, you have 50 booths, but only 3 ones that are manned, and then you wait forever. Whereas in Narita, it's always super fast. You have machines. It's not proper e-gates yet, but you have machines. This time, though, clearly, because probably of the Olympics coming up, they were renovating the immigration area. Avoid it. It's not great. The one thing, though, that I saw, Alex, they are installing e-gates. they look like portals from Stargate, the science fiction show. You're like, maybe I'll go there. Yeah, maybe I'll go there. And by the time you put your passport, you're transported directly to Shibuya. You don't even have to take your luggage. I don't know, Japanese technology. But the only thing I don't know yet is whether these will be only for Japanese. These will be only for 5 passports. It will be like Dubai, for instance, for like all the passports, or Hong Kong. I hope the latter one, because these e-gates would change our lives completely in Japan.
They really would. They really would. It would make things so much easier.
Yeah, and they are installing them. So I can see that they're installing them and on both ways. I saw them also on the way out. So yeah, it's coming. Finally. If you guys friends in Japan have any more info, I hope that it's open to more than Japanese and residents, because it would be really fantastic. I mentioned Haneda earlier getting Delta now and more flights. You know that, probably you've noticed, Alex, unlike London and a few other cities, you don't see aircrafts over Tokyo.
No.
It's changing. Japan has finally reached a deal with the US, because of the US bases, to redraw the flight path to add capacity for Haneda. And that's obviously, again, for the 2020 Olympics, meaning that I think the daytime international flights will go from 60,000, that's current, to 100,000. So that's a big increase. And from now on, you will see flights over Tokyo itself. So some friends of mine that always were super proud that there were no flights and no noise. Well, you'll have them as we do here in London. But I'm sure they will be not very disruptive. But yeah, so good news for Haneda, I guess.
Yeah.
It's becoming really... It's almost like they need to expand that thing at some point.
Well, at least if they need to, they can expand into the sea, because it's on the water there. So
yeah,
they have the space to do it.
And can you believe that there, because I know you've been involved with the tourism board there in Japan, but can you believe that their goal for next year is to reach 40 million tourists?
Wow.
40 million tourists. I was living there, Alex, 2007, 8. There were 2 million tourists a year. It's insane when I think about it.
They're working really hard. With
wow.
those 2 events, and of course with the Olympics next year, that's going to have a lot of people there.
So I'm in Japan, and I'm going to do something. It's not because we haven't recorded for 2 months and we're suddenly switching agenda and switching themes, but I've done something that is not an aircraft, but it's a Shinkansen, and I've done the Gran Class.
Oh yes, I saw some pictures of this, but I'm keen to hear more.
So for those who don't know, of course, the Shinkansen, you guys know, it's a bullet train. There are many different bullet trains in Japan. And on the very recent ones, they've introduced something called Gran Class. So up to now, you had like normal class, economy, if you want to call it that way, and you had the green cars. The green cars was sort of a business class. And now they've introduced Gran Class, which is like a first class, clearly. And my dream was to visit the Museum of Art in Aomori. Aomori is like the very, very top of Japan, just below the island of Hokkaido, right? So you look at the banana that Japan makes at the very top before you actually reach the Hokkaido. Because I love modern art. There's big Chagalls there. And every time I go to a city, I want to see the Museum of Modern Art, Contemporary Art, whatever. So it was my dream. And I said, you know what? I have the Sunday. I can do it. I'm jet lagged anyway. So first I looked at the flights and I'm like, I can do with Aomori Airport. JAL flies 737s. But then I'm like, Gran Class. Okay, let's take a look at the Gran Class. Let's take a look. It's not cheap, but it's actually competitive with flights, believe it or not. Because obviously a flight takes an hour. The Shinkansen takes 3.5 hours. So they have to be competitive if you want to take 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
Obviously you arrive closer to the city, but still. And man, it's not a lie flat because come on, it's 3.5 hours, but it's like a very, very, very big first sofa, first class with lots of buttons and the service man and they bring you food and like a little towel and I was the only non-Japanese who goes to Aomori in the middle of the summer, probably nobody, because besides that museum, there's not a lot to see, let's be honest. That city is 250,000 people. It's not very big, right? But the service, man, it was, you know about Japanese service because now you've been very often, but
yeah.
she had like these a bento box for food. It was I don't know. I was a bit tired. I said, 3.5 hours. I'm probably going to sleep a little bit and then arrive at the museum. I didn't sleep for a single minute. I wanted to try everything.
Wow.
They gave you like an eye mask. They gave you slippers. You have bathrooms the size of my office. You have, it's just, so there's no IFE. I don't think there's IFE. No, there's no IFE. I was using my iPad at some point. But the leg room is gigantic. It goes into an almost lie flat, but no full lie flat. If you guys have, just Google it. But if you guys have also seen what the Chinese are doing with their high-speed trains, they have also some kind of first class. It's probably similar, but it's the details, man. It's just, again, it's Japan. We know they have attention to details, but it's perfect.
Wow.
It's just, to the point that my plan was originally to say, because last minute booking flights again to Aomori were super cheap. So I said, I'm going to go there with a Shinkansen. I'm going to do my museum thing. Mm-hmm. Then I'm going to take an Uber. This Uber in a city of 250,000 people, man, in Japan is crazy. I'm going to take an Uber to the airport and I'm just going to leave with JAL. It was so good that I decided to go back with the Shinkansen again and to do the Gran Class a second time again. Fast Wi-Fi, 4G all along, even in the tunnels, because we go through mountains at some point. There's like always service, whatever you want, like beer. But it's just, man, this is better than most of the experience that I've in flights, actually.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's absolute. And you know what? You can buy something we cannot do, obviously, with flights. You can literally arrive at a station, put the routing you want, put your credit card, get a ticket, get on the train. You cannot really do that with, you can buy on your app, obviously. Although if you ever try to download the JAL app, they have a separate app for Japan and for international. The app for Japan to try to buy a flight there is a disaster in UX. So it's just, yeah.
Wow.
The only thing I wasn't happy, I didn't have seat 1A in the Gran Class. I had seat 2A because one of elderly gentleman, there seems to be some kind of CEO had, of course, 1A, probably a part of some loyalty program I was not aware of. But guys, do the Gran Class once. There's only like 2 routes to do the Gran Class. So it's the line that goes the most up north to in Japan. It used to stop in Aomori until 2-3 years ago, and in the next 30 years, it will reach Sapporo, where you've been, Alex. That's the goal.
Yeah, I think, it's going to take a long time.
But yeah, fantastic. For the rest, Japan, a shout out to Shin. Of course, you know him as well, Alex.
Yeah, good old Shin.
Shout out to Chris, both guys I had dinner with and drinks, etc. And Jerry Young, also, we had a lot of fun together. And I want to do a special mention right here to my dear friend Vlad Savov is one of the founders, actually, of The Verge. We did his sayonara dinner here in London, him and me, because he accepted a job as technology editor for Bloomberg in Tokyo. So moved to Tokyo. I think he had only been in Japan once, moved to Tokyo a few weeks ago now. And we had an overlap of 10 hours where we could have seen each other to do, after the sayonara in London, do the welcome in Japan. We couldn't make it, but Vlad, I promise you that I'm going to see you next time I'm in Tokyo. It's one of the best cities in the world.
I love it.
He's gonna love it. He's gonna love it. And thanks to Jerry, who I just mentioned, who's a VC as well. He works at Hardware Club. I met the guys, and I sent you the link, Alex. I met the guys that create something they call BONX. It's an earpiece you put in your ear, obviously, and you can talk to anyone freely in any kind of environment. The the founder, is a surfer and created that so he could talk to his friends when he was surfing. Otherwise, how do you talk to each other? Basically, it's kind of free walkie-talkie that you have as an earpiece. Clever. The thing is, ANA is deploying that in their flights now. That's how the flight attendants are going to talk to each other.
That's clever, isn't it? That's a good idea.
It is, right?
Those phones, they are quite analog.
It's very clever, actually. Wow. Anyway, have you seen, by the way, in talking about ANA, have you seen the images of the new first and the new business class?
I am going tomorrow to the press unveiling in London of the new business class.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate you, man. What?
Yeah, I'm going to go and experience it. Not in quite the same way as I would like, where I end up in Tokyo at the end of it,
way.
So I will report back.
Okay, guys, so let's not do that today. So we're going to do that in the next episode, because the images look... the first class obviously looks amazing. It reminds me a bit of a Swiss, but with different colors. But the business class, man, looks Is it better than the Q? You're going to sit and you're going to tell me.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it looks great. They call it the Room.
The Room, exactly, right. But wow, okay. Look, I'm going to put this thing aside, a few notes I had on it for the next episode because I'm freaking jealous, man. I hate you right now. God.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll let you know what it's like.
It's starting. The London route will have it this month. So probably that's why they're unveiling it in London, right? Okay, wow. Man. Damn it. Okay, well, I'm very happy that one of us is actually going to... Damn it. Okay, so... Look, let's do the rest of the news I had for Japan about seats the next time. Then after you can taunt me in the next episode. I'm sure he's going to send me pictures tomorrow and to make me very... So one last news about Japan. Anita IP2, I think that's her name on Twitter. She's been very often sending us news, and we always welcome. I think she's flown recently the Hello Kitty plane on. Oh,
that's right, of course, Anita.
But what she sent us was, and I didn't know that it existed, Air Moss, the Moss Burger teriyaki burger she did between, what was it, Narita and, I don't remember what it was, but anyway. Moss Burger? What? Did you know that you could have that in the flight?
I'd heard about this, yeah. I like Moss Burger. My kids were surprised by it when I first took them there. But yeah, that's so cool.
It's on JAL. I think it's a kids menu.
What?
But you know what? Damn it. I will ask for the kids menu. I don't care. I mean, I'm a kid. Moss Burger in a flight. I mean, wow. Air Moss. Anita, thank you so much for the picture. Yeah. And anyone else who's done it, let us know because that's wow. Okay, to finish this show, before we go to the airport, so I'm actually in Tokyo, and I just told you that my fare was started actually in Hong Kong, and it was with CX, because it was actually as a gift for Alex. I wanted to fly for the first time, because it was his birthday this summer, I wanted to fly for the first time American Airlines, because you've heard him for the past 20 episodes telling how amazing, supposedly, American Airlines is. So I was like, God damn it, I'm going to fly. But of course, he didn't know that I would do that, and you'll learn that at the very end of the episode why. So I'm like, okay, so I booked this ticket, which was actually, the first bit was that Cathay flight to Narita. And then from Narita to LAX, I flew, what you mentioned earlier on the show, I flew a Dreamliner in 1A. So same exact, yeah. Okay, so it's good. Honestly, I understand why you like it. It's, because I don't fly as much US airlines in general. So I always love it because it's very American, this casual demeanor when they talk to you. And I know I'm in a US airline and I like this. The seat, you said it, is like the Cathays, is maybe less bells and whistle, but it's a very, what was it, reverse herringbone, they call it. It's a very nice seat. The rest, it's a 787. They had the air vents, it was nice. And the IFE was great. But the one thing that I first noticed, and I know I'm a geek for that because I love headphones. I just talked about Vlad Sava. Vlad Sava was the headphone reviewer on The Verge. They have these Bang & Olufsen headphones.
Yeah.
Holy cow, they're good.
They are good, aren't they?
Oh my God.
They're really good.
And now I understand why you were telling me that they were removing these headphones 30 minutes before landing, because probably they're so good that they don't want anyone to steal them, because it must be also darn expensive.
I asked because it drove me crazy, because they give you these crappy disposable headphones 45 to 30 minutes before landing, and they're going to come. And I said, what's the deal with that? And they're like, people keep stealing them. And I said, okay, fair enough.
Holy cow. Yeah. Wow. Listen, this flight, was it even my first American Airlines flight? Since I was a kid, at least it's possible. I really liked it. The privacy is great on that seat. The amenity kit is pretty nice, actually. There's a very comfy eye mask. Actually, I liked it. You have slippers, the duvet. Honestly, the duvet is actually Casper. I didn't realize that these guys they're always on the ads. Just because, guys, you heard Casper, say Casper in front of your microphone in your smartphone, you get 25,000 ads right now, actually, about that. But yeah, it's really, the crew wasn't Qatar, which I had just flown.
It's not Cathay, it's not JAL, it's very different.
But it's a cool demeanor. The food was also, I didn't know what to do, because remember, guys, I tell you, Alex knows as well, usually I eat the food if I have a choice to the direction I'm going to. So here would have been more American food and not Japanese food because, and I don't know if you ever flown American, Alex, from Japan.
No.
The menu is co-branded with JAL.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's a Japanese chef within that same menu. So you have the traditional, I guess, American Airlines menu, and then you had like Japanese options who clearly were JAL, our partner, and the chef, and everything looked amazing. And maybe they're making an effort because it's Japan and they know they have a lot of Japanese customers, so they have to. But it was really very good. I took the Japanese option actually, really really good. The few things obviously you can say that is not Cathay or not is like, yeah, they bring you champagne, but it's in a plastic glass, stuff like that. It's details. It's okay, by the way. I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying that that's where the small differences are. There's one thing that I really liked on the IFE, and probably you've seen because you take that all the time. There's a little widget at the bottom right-hand side, and you can click and you have time to destination, miles flown, current temperature, outside temperature, whatever. But it can stay there because usually, if you want this information, you have to go, I have to go to the menu, maps or my flights, and then you have to either wait for the thing to roll, the screens to roll, map. Oh no, I want the time to destination. You have this little widget that can overlay a movie even, I think, I'm not sure, but at least you can have the very easy information. I found that very well thought out.
The IFE is good and comprehensive, and there's 4 or 5 live TV. The Wi-Fi is reasonably priced and pretty fast.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, honestly, the guy, he was called Alex, actually, my main attendant. He was clearly trained in wine. The food was generous, very American. But when I was asking about the wine and I was hesitating, I didn't ask him which one should I take. He clearly saw that I was hesitating, and he started explaining both of the white wines and why they were good. And I was like, okay, this guy knows. It's not like he was not reading out of a script or a script that he had learned beforehand. Clearly he had been trained. That was, again, something that I had never seen in America because I don't fly a lot US airlines, but I was impressed. It was very good, man.
Yeah, no, they're definitely, across the Atlantic, they're definitely my favorite option.
There's a few things that, every time there's turbulences, they put the fasten seatbelt sign basically interrupts the IFE. I'm like, oh my God. Every time.
I know.
I get it. Why? Safety, whatever. But sometimes you're like, come on, it's fine. And we had a bumpy flight. So it was like every 5 minutes I was watching a movie. It's like, come on.
Yeah. Because it's like this automated thing that comes up, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. We even had a medical emergency. The only reason I know is that there was the same pop-up that appeared on screen. Instead of calling, everybody got on the IFE asking if there was a doctor on board.
Oh, that's interesting.
Probably there was at some point because we never heard about it anymore later. So probably that situation was solved. But it was interesting.
That's a good way of doing it, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the safety video, because again, you probably have seen it a billion times, but it's both very explanatory, which US safety videos always are, but I find it quite modern and even chic.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's sort of this like performance art thing,
exactly.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's good. It's not quirky, which doesn't always hit the spot if you go too far one direction or the other. Yeah, it's not bad. I think it's good. It's very on brand.
Yeah, I liked it. Look, the crew, they were doing their job. Alex, the one I mentioned, was above and beyond, but the rest were good. Yeah. I cannot say they were bad. I cannot say they were great. They were doing their job.
In a nutshell. Yeah.
But I appreciate that. There was not overstepping, over friendliness. They were good. Then I landed in LAX, belched out in some, underground of the Terminal 4. It's very strange. We have a bus, and then we don't get to the, what's the name of the international Tom Bradley, Bradley, there you go. We go to Terminal 4, so the American Airlines terminal, although we are international inbound, and I'm sure that's normal. So it's a very different experience at Terminal 4 because literally, I guess they don't have that many flights coming internationally to that. You literally walk what it seems into a construction area under some... It's like, hey, where am I? And then you belch out into an immigration area, which is not very big, but... Okay, I was also 1A, so it allowed me to go fast. Even with ESTA, which is the visa waiver program in the US, input a few things in a computer, scan my passport, take a picture of me. The officer, not the greatest, but whatever. That took me 5 minutes, which then actually I had to wait forever for my luggage. But so it didn't look great, but it worked great.
Yeah,
that's what you want, right? So honestly, and then in LAX, I had 6 hours before a connecting flight. So what did I do? I went to In-N-Out.
There you go. That's the only thing you can do.
The weather was fantastic. I saw like so many aircrafts landing, including a lot of AAs. It was really fantastic. There was actually the Cranky Dork Fest. Have you seen the pictures?
Oh, yeah.
From Cranky Flyer.
Yeah, with Munoz from United handing out burgers.
Yeah, Munoz showed up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty amazing.
It's like if you and me were doing like a Layovers Fest in London and Alex Cruz shows up. I mean, I would love it, by the way. Alex, if you're listening to us, not this Alex Cruz, you can have a beer with us. We're not going to be too harsh on BA, we promise you. Yeah, well, okay. And then, so went back after In-N-Out. I was connecting to San Jose, domestic, Terminal 4, but I was flying American Eagle.
Yes.
American Eagle has its own terminal, the Eagles Nest.
Is that what they call it, really?
Yeah, I think it's called the Eagles Nest because it's not part of any of the other terminals. You literally have to take a bus, and it's like a self-contained building somewhere on the apron. So I was in Terminal 4, cleared security again, was super easy. Then stayed in the Admirals Club in that Terminal 4, which was nice. And there was this bus, and you take this bus, and this bus leads you to this nest, which is a set of gates. But wonderfully, and I didn't know, they also have an Admirals Club. It's a tiny one, but it's a nice one. And I stayed. And the thing is, I didn't know, because I was flying business, which is first there, whatever, I had 2 premium drinks free in the lounge. So I think Bud Light is free anyway. But premium beer, apparently Heineken is a premium beer. I didn't know that. But it's nice to know that I had that. Do you have that usually? Or
in an Admirals Club, yes. In flagship lounges, no.
Oh, yeah. About the Eagles Nest, what I didn't know is that because American is trying to reduce the number of passengers at T4 in LAX, which apparently are too many, they encourage now people to go to T6. And from T6, you also have a bus that also leads you to this Eagles Nest. So if you guys have ever done the other way, I don't know if I should have done T6. Maybe the lounge was better, but T4 was honestly really fine. So I'm not going to complain about that. Then American Eagle, it was an Embraer 175. Have you ever flown American Eagle?
I have, yeah.
Was it the one that had like this shipped paint? Was it that?
Was it American Eagle? Yeah, the thing with American Eagle is it's a franchise operation, isn't it? Or they
something like that. Yeah,
the actual airline it could be Envoy, it could be a few of the other big subcontracting airlines in the U.S. So the experiences can vary dramatically.
So I was in 1A again, and the legroom was batshit insane. I think I had like 10 meters. I'm kidding. But it was like, really, they put this. I was like, why would you have so much legroom in front? I'm not going to complain. It was really great. Although sometimes I like to be able to touch the bulkhead because I can also rest my feet on the bulkhead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
But when there's too much legroom, there's literally too much legroom. Look, nice plane. I love Embraers. The service was, they didn't give a F.
No.
On
those back and forth.
Literally. I was super nice. She was cool. I'm not saying that she was bad or whatever, but literally, here's your beer, and never addressed me the whole rest of the flight. Basically, I think that was pretty much it. But then you're right. I was looking at everybody else because I was like a kid. I was like, I've never flown an American Eagle. I've never been in Eagles Nest. I was just flown from Tokyo. This is so cool.
Yeah.
And there's a reason I'm flying all this. And then I'm looking at all the other guys, and everybody's on their headphones and watching something or working, and nobody actually cares. And I'm like, okay, I'm the only one that actually cares about the service here. So probably, I get it, right? It's just, it was a 55 minutes flight, so it's okay. We don't need more. The very interesting bit, and that will be my last comment, is that if you guys been to the Eagles Nest, is these boarding things are very bizarre. It's like they're not stairs. And I understand probably for wheelchairs, but like they really seem to be temporary, made up.
Yeah,
marble runs. And I had that, of course, when I landed with American earlier on. But the ones from the Eagles Nest really look like temporary. They wobbly, and you're like, oh, what? But it works very well. But it really, for me, it really feels what I think about the experience of flying in the US, which is more practical than the experience. It has to be practical. It has to be pragmatic.
Yeah.
And it is, by the way.
Yeah, it's
and then,
much more like a bus service.
Yeah, exactly. I fly to San Jose, which was my first time, but I cannot really experience anything because flying there as a domestic is I land and I'm at my luggage and I'm out. I'm like, okay, that was easy. That took me like 30 seconds. And I was like, okay, I understand why Alex is always coming here. And why did I do that? Because then I took a car to Livermore when I was very close to where you live. I mean, I was actually in Dublin, and the next day in the morning, I came to make you a surprise.
Yes.
That was fun.
That was amazing. My wife had organized this wonderful 40th birthday celebration where my dearest friends had flown in from all over the world, unbeknownst to me. And as I walked from near Fisherman's Wharf to
Pier 33.
Pier 33. My friends kept appearing out of nowhere to surprise me, and it was just wonderful. And I can't thank you and Jack and Chris
Ferg and Chris,
Fergie, and of course my wife for
and
putting
our
it all
family as
together.
well. We had a wonderful time.
Yeah.
But man, how hard it was for me to hide the fact that I was coming. We talk about flights, as you know, on this podcast, but we always chat with Alex like daily. And I was like trying to find a fare, and I couldn't rely on my best buddy when it comes to flight about how would I go. And I cannot ask him. And I was like, and then I had to hide the fact we were talking about our next flights and something, and I couldn't tell you that I was coming to and doing all these flights. And so my birthday gift was only to show up but to fly AA, so now I can actually say it was wonderful. Thank you to your wife, thank you of course to these group of amazing cats, Jack, Fergie and Chris, and Will as well, of course. And I met his wife, very happy, and all, your wife's family, everything was fantastic. That week was amazing, so thank you, Alex. It was
thank you. It was incredible,
really fantastic. And the return, how I left, and that's going to be for the next episode. But that was one of the best flights because I knew I was coming to surprise Alex in San Francisco. And then we did everything from go-karting to, you taught me what is the burger we had at In-N-Out the last day when we were about to leave.
Double animal style.
My God, that was good.
Yeah.
I had never tried that before. That was amazing.
Yeah,
man.
you got to do it animal style.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. That was really fantastic. Thank you so much, Alex, for that.
Thank
was
you.
really,
God, I'll never forget that as long as I live.
So not forget about Detroit Airport. How is that?
Detroit was outstanding. That airport surprised the hell out of me.
First time.
It was my first time ever through Detroit.
Oh, wow.
And it was fantastic. I was in the newest terminal, which even actually isn't even that new, but it was one of those long end-to-end terminals, clean and airy and bright. It has this sort of internal train that runs across along the top of it. It's literally inside and can take you from the more distant gates. Excellent facilities, excellent food options, really clearly and obviously laid out. I was so impressed with that airport. Delta are using it for a lot of their PAX-X experiments, so they're doing this biometric boarding that Cathay and a few other airlines are doing. So they used it on our flight, so you went through this camera and you could board if you wanted to. But yeah,
we will talk. I think that's one of the topics we'll talk in our next episode, because this is something that is a hot topic, biometric boarding and everything. I think I didn't know that. Oh wow, they have it because San Jose has it as well, I think. No?
Yeah, a lot of them are rolling it out. It was. Yeah, I was so impressed by that airport. And I know that a lot of people probably had the same reaction that I did going, this is going to be awful. And then had the same reaction I did leaving, which was, no, actually, this is a very, very good airport. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something, but apparently they got the best U.S. airport in customer satisfaction by J.D. Power recently. So, they've been working hard at this.
Look, I've only been once, and that was in March 2010, so we're talking a long time ago. I was coming from Austin with a CR9, I think, and Delta, and then I flew from Detroit to Amsterdam on a 330-300, I think, Delta again. I only had 2.5 hours, so I don't know how long you had. I remember most of the action happened in Concourse A or A gates, which is the central bit where you probably were as well. When you see that Sky Train thing, I think they call it the Express Tram or something, because that Concourse A is the second longest airport concourse in the world after Kansai.
Is it really? I believe it.
KIX, yeah. And I remember loving it. We're talking 10 years ago, but there are airports that I forget, that some of the airports that we're talking this year, like, I kind of remember, like Charlotte. I went to Charlotte and I had like these vague images of Charlotte. Some stuff stuck, but not. Detroit, because maybe of these expectations you just mentioned, I was like, how good is that for a U.S. airport?
Yeah.
Like, not the bus station we keep mentioning, and I have nothing against bus station, but really, it was neat. It was well designed. That tram, express train is, at least back in the day, looked like almost science fictionary. It was really, honestly, I was really, really impressed. And it's very easy to understand as well, the layouts. And we're not JFK or whatever. You have these A gates, it's mostly a Delta SkyTeam thing. So the A gates, which is basically the central bit. Then you have your B gates on one side and the C gates on the other side. Only if you don't fly SkyTeam, you have D gates, which is a slightly bit, again, super easy to reach because you have moving walkways everywhere. Yeah. And the lounge, and we're talking about lounge 9 years ago, so probably it's changed, it's upgraded a lot. I stayed in the lounge in the A gates, Officer Wayfinder. I don't remember which one it was. It's 9 years ago, guys. But I also remember that it was a great lounge. I mean, I have only good memories about an airport. I can only recommend people to connect there.
Yeah, it was so easy to connect. I am impressed. I mean, of course, it's Fortress, Delta, and to an extent Virgin, so that will slightly force your hand. But yeah, impressive.
Would you do a layover or would you go to Detroit?
I've always wanted to go to Detroit, so I'd probably find an opportunity to go in town.
Yeah, I've been once a very long time ago as a teenager, so same. But as a layover, I would totally stay several hours in there easily. It's a great airport.
Yeah.
And I don't think we say that often for US airports. Very impressive. So we're going to probably record pretty quickly because another one, because we will try to maintain a 2-week, 3-week, now not 2 months gap until the end of the year. But do you have any flights coming up?
Nope. I've got
September is quiet.
Yeah, by design.
Good. Yeah, I'm just doing Warsaw this coming weekend, so I'll try to get this episode out before, and Amsterdam at the end of the month. That's about it also for me, so we'll probably record soon. Thank you guys for having waited for 2 months for this to come out.
Thank you for your patience.
And happy travels.
Safe travels, guys.